guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. Today we will be doing my June read and wrap up, going over the books that I read last month. I thought I'd put some stats together just for my own, I say stats, it's nothing groundbreaking, just for my own interest, but in total I read 9 books, 4,636 pages. Of those, 4 were on my Kindle, 5 were physical with doing an audiobook alongside. It had quite a romance heavy month, so 8 of those were romance and 1 was a fantasy. And I had a really good month overall. I will go through my ratings as we go through the book, but I don't think I had anything less than a 3-star, which that's quite normal. It would take a lot for me to rate something less than 3 stars. And I definitely had a couple of 5 stars. So let's go over the books I read in June. Okay, so the first few books were on my Kindle because I was away at the start of the month. And the first book I read in June was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I rated this 3 stars. I did enjoy it. 3 stars for me is still a good book. Anything above 2.5 really is going to be, if you think 2.5 is half a 5, 2.5 what, average? I mean, that's not quite right, but anything above that is going to be good. Wasn't my favourite of hers for sure, but I still enjoyed it. I liked both the characters. It's loosely an enemies to lovers. Basically, they're on opposing sides of a company acquisition, possibly is the right word, or a merger. And yeah, I enjoyed it overall. The second one has just come out, or like it's an interconnected, which is Problematic Summer Romance, which I already have. It's already on my shelf. Ali Hazelwood is an auto-buy author for me, so I will read anything she writes. Though I haven't read everything, I've still got Bride and Deep End to read. But basically I will get to them at some point. So yeah, 3 stars. Ideal to read whilst on holiday. Enjoyed it. The next book I read, also on holiday, also 3 stars, was Face Off by Chelsea Curto. This is the first book in the DC Stars series, and I do intend on continuing with the series. I think there's 4 books out at the moment, and I think there's going to be like 7 in total, which is quite a lot. This is a hockey romance, ice hockey romance. So we've got Emmy and Maverick. So Maverick is the captain of the hockey team. Emmy is a hockey player, and she actually gets the opportunity to play on the team. So rather than it being, they're starting to introduce women players into the National League rather than necessarily having a women's league and a men's league. This is very much friends. It starts with friends with benefits. You know, they start off rocky, but then they develop like a friends with benefits. He's got that casual, what am I trying to say? He's got that F-boy persona. Girls love him, he loves girls, blah, blah, blah. But really, he's a massive softie, he's a golden retriever. It's very much a he falls first. And one of the reasons why I rated it down, so like I said, 3 stars is still a really good book, but for me, this has got all of the makings to be a 4-star, 5-star book. But he was just too perfect, and it was a bit cringy, and I just struggled a bit with him as a character. Maybe I've been reading too many dark romance books, maybe that's the problem. But it is a series I will be looking to continue, and I have heard that each book gets better as it goes on. And whilst I don't love that in a series, Windy City series is exactly the same. Mile High is not the best book by far, and yet that's like a 5-star series overall for me. So I definitely will be continuing with that series. So the next book I read in June, also on my Kindle, also whilst I was on holiday, was Lilac by B.B. Reid. This one I hadn't seen a lot about in terms of like, I hadn't seen a lot about it on like BookTok, but it'd been on my Goodreads want to read for a couple of years, so I'd obviously seen it somewhere at some point. And I think I got it was either on Kindle Unlimited or I got it in a Stuff Your Kindle Day or something like that. And so I thought I would just give it a go. Had absolutely no idea what it was. I hadn't read the blurb or the synopsis or anything. And it ended up being, so again, 3 stars. And it just wasn't what I expected. So it ended up being a reverse harem, a bit of a bully romance. So basically the main female character, Braxton, she is a guitar player and she is introduced to a band that she has followed who are looking for a new guitarist, and she is introduced to the 3 remaining members of the band, and they don't really get a choice, it's up to their label. So she becomes their new guitarist, they're about to go on tour, they don't want her there, and they've all got their own, so it's these 3 guys, they've all got their own problems or complexities, layers to them, and yeah, basically it's a why choose, and she ends up with all 3 of them at various points along the book, and it's fine, it's fun, it's a good time, it's a standalone, which is quite nice because there's just so many series going on at the moment, and I enjoyed it. 3 stars. We'll check out more of BB Reid's books. I haven't got any on my radar at the moment, but I'm sure over time I will gravitate towards more of her stuff. Okay, so the first physical book I read for the month, which I do have somewhere, but I don't know where it is, so I'll pop a picture up, but I did read the physical, was My Fault by Mercedes Ron. Now this was a highly anticipated read for me. This was a 5-star prediction. I have the whole series, so I've also got Your Fault and Our Fault. And I only rated this 3 stars, which was a bit of a disappointment. A couple of reasons why it got rated down. One, if you haven't already, then previously there were films released that have been translated from Spanish, but I'm not talking about those films because I haven't seen them. But recently My Fault London came out and it's on Amazon Prime, and I'd seen the film, someone had talked about the film and I had it on in the background whilst I was doing other stuff, and I really enjoyed the film. I just found it was just a bit of me. It was a romance, but a bit taboo, and it had a bit more to it. It was a bit gritty, and I really enjoyed it. So off the back of watching that, I bought the books. One of the biggest issues, and I've never written a book, so I'm not criticising, I don't want to criticise too much, but there was a couple of editing errors where the wrong character was referenced. So it'd be in dialogue and then the character would say the wrong name, and it happened once and I was sort of like, that's a bit poor that wasn't picked up on, but you know, it's not traditionally published, like things get missed, whatever. But it happened like 2 or 3 times, so I was a bit like, it just stunted the enjoyment of the reading a bit. And then the other reason I didn't like it so much was because although it was taboo, and I knew that going in from watching the film, the reason it's taboo in the film is because their stepbrother and stepsister don't grow up together. They meet as 18-year-olds when their parents get married. In the book, not only are they stepbrother and stepsister, there's also an age gap, and I'm not one to always dislike age gaps, but I do dislike age gaps where one of them is a minor. So this was set in America, and she was 17, he was 22. Age of consent in America is 18. Age of consent over here is 16. But even so, that's still a 17-year-old and a 22-year-old. It doesn't sit great with me. Whereas in the film, they'd both been made 18, so they were they were at the same age. Therefore, you know, there's the same place in their lives, etc. So I just didn't love the age gap. And there was references, so like when he'd be like talking to her, he'd say things like, oh, I love that uniform on you. So like there was definitely like references to the fact that she was younger than him and at school. Didn't love that. I will read the next 2 because I've got them, and I'm assuming as time goes on they're getting older, but I am much more looking forward to, they have now confirmed that they're making the films of the next 2 with the same people that did My Fault London. So yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment. Definitely preferred the film to the book, which is not something I would normally say. Will continue the series at some point. Gave it a 3 stars. The next book I read, so I read this in 3 or 4 days off the back of coming out of hospital because I had surgery in June. And I just thought, I've got time now. I'd been putting it off, and one of my friends was reading it as well, so we thought we'd do a bit of a buddy read. I'm not going to harp on about it too much because I've spoken about it a lot already, but that is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. This is book 8 in the Throne of Glass series. I loved this, 5 stars, the perfect ending to an incredible series. Highly, highly, highly recommend if you haven't read this series already. Obviously it's a bit of a chunk. This is the one I did in line with an audiobook, and that worked really well for me because I was quite tired and I was spending quite a bit of time in bed. I would just have this on whilst I was playing a game on my phone or whatever. And I really, really enjoyed this. I will definitely be rereading the series at some point, but not for a long, long, long time. Definitely not any time in the next year or so. Incredible. Love it. Won't say too much more because, like I said, I have spoken about it already, but Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. The next book I read was also a physical book, but I have now lent it out, so I don't have it to hand, and that is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This is book 2 in the Skyline series, and again, I'm not going to go too much into it because I've already spoken about it a lot on this channel. Loved it. It's incredible. The whole series, well, the 2 books I've read so far are incredible. The third one, can't get enough, is on my TBR for this month, so I'm very much looking forward to getting to that soon. Kennedy Ryan is an auto-buy author. I've got another series of her on my shelves as well. Really enjoyed. She writes women really well, and like I said before, and like the relationships women have, a relationship with yourself, and I highly, highly, highly recommend. The next book I have read was a bit of an interesting one for me because when I got back into reading in lockdown, this author was someone who I gravitated towards, was an auto-buy. Definitely agree with people when they say like she is an author that gets people into reading, and that is Colleen Hoover. But then as I've read more books over the last few years, she's just not an author that I've reached for as much. I think the real turning point for me, and this is nothing about Colleen Hoover, like this is nothing about her as an author, it's just me personally. I tried to read Verity, which is a lot of people's favourite book, and I DNF'd it partly because I was pregnant at the time, and if you have read Verity, you'll know that there's quite harrowing scenes in it regarding babies and pregnancy, and I just couldn't do it, and I just never picked up another book. I've read several of hers, I've still got them all, so even when I've unhauled books, my Colleen Hoover ones haven't gone, like I do still have them, and I do disagree with quite a lot of the negative conversation around Colleen Hoover. Not all of it, but quite a lot of it. I got Heartbones for my birthday, and I picked this up last month, and I enjoyed it. Gave it 3 stars. But when I was putting the notes together for this video, I didn't remember too much about it, and I had to go back onto Goodreads and remind myself a bit about it, and I think that sums up where the books are for me. It was good. It was a quick read. It followed, as a lot of her books do, 2 characters that have trauma and maybe a bit of a negative home life, etc. These are not your cookie cutter boy meets girl romance books, and they shouldn't be treated as such, and you should check trigger warnings before going into them, even though they are bright pink with a little windmill on the front. This is something where I don't necessarily agree with how they're marketed, etc., and the lack of consideration of trigger warnings. But anyway, enjoyed it whilst I read it. I do think she's a good author for getting into reading. I will read more if I happen to come across more, but she's no longer an author I'm like seeking out. But yeah, Heartbones by Colleen Hoover was the next book I read, and that's all I'm really gonna say. She says like she hasn't just spoken for 3 minutes, but yeah. The next book I read was another Kindle one, and that was Burnout by Rebecca Genshak, I think is how you say. I really enjoyed this. This is the first book in a series, so I will be continuing with that. I believe the series is going to cover the brothers of the book, which I know a few series have done that, and I'm not against it, to be honest. This one followed Knox and Avery. So Knox is, he starts at the start of the book, he's a motocross, oh sorry, I've got a hair on my tongue. He's a motocross racer, but then because his temper gets the best of him, he is fired from his team, and he just has to find somewhere else or something else for him to do whilst he's trying to win back approval of a team to join. So he starts doing shows and stuff where they do, I'm not an expert in this at all, but where they do, rather than racing, they're doing stunts and things. And his friend suggests that he goes to Avery, who is an Olympic gymnast, for help with balancing and strength. And so he'll be doing the moves he'd be doing on the motorbike, he does on a balance beam, for example, and he practices on a balance beam to then get his strength up, etc. And it's sort of enemies to lovers is not quite right. They don't hate each other, they're just very different people, and they have different opinions on things. And then it becomes a bit of a friends with benefits, and obviously feelings develop. And there's a lot more to Knox than maybe first meets the eye. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars because I'm learning, the more I read, I'm more getting now where people do the 4.25 or 3.5 or whatever, because it's not a 3 because it's better than things like this, but in my opinion, but it's maybe not quite 4, not quite 5. But I am looking forward to continuing with the series. And the final book I read in June is one, again, I'm not going to go on too much about, but it is Save It 6 by Chloe Walsh. This is book 3 in the Boys of Tottenham series, and it is part 1 of Joey and Aoife's story. And again, this is a series I recommend, but only to people that have checked trigger warnings, because it is following a group of friends in the late 90s and noughties and their lives, and they're big books, and you get chunks of life, but all of these characters. So Joey, whose book this is, his home life is horrendous. His parents are horrendous, and it is difficult to read. And some of the scenes in this book, like, they're haunting, but you care so much about the characters and they cross over. So Binding and Keeping 13 were books 1 and 2, and that was Johnny and Shannon's story. Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 are Joey and Aoife's story, and they're happening at the same time. So you'll get to a point of Saving 6 and you'll go, oh, so this is when Joey met Shannon, sort of thing. So it's a group of characters that you really, really care about, and they feel real, and I think about them all the time, and I take breaks between the books because I need to. But 5 stars, 5-star series. I've got 3 more to read that are currently out. I think there's more to come, and I do just want to give Chloe Walsh a cuddle, because I know how much of herself she puts into these books, and how much, how they make you feel as a reader, like, will pale compared to how it must have felt writing them. But they're incredible, and I do recommend, but I just encourage people to check trigger warnings. Okay, so that was the books that I read in June. A pretty average reading month overall in terms of like amount of books that I've read. some really good ones, some still good, alright, not too much to rave about books, which again, is how it goes. Not everything can be the best book ever, otherwise we wouldn't appreciate the ones that are. Really enjoyed Kingdom of Ash, obviously a book like that. Obviously out of the 9 books, 2 of them were like this, so I'm pretty happy overall. Having a really good month so far in July. It's currently the 8th of July, so looking forward to talking you through the books that I read in July. And yeah, please let me know in the comments if any of these books you've read or want to read, if you've got any recommendations maybe from these authors of other books I should read, and if you like my videos, please do subscribe. Bye.